Pascal, welcome on to the Searching for Mana show.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Pleasure to have you on the show. So slightly fuller introduction, Pascal Gauthier, who is the chairman and chief executive officer with Ledger, has been with Ledger predating 2015. Pascal will go into the specifics, has had a career previously in a number of different type of roles, spent some time in venture, working with big brands like Index, Mosaic, so on and so forth. So we'll cover what Pascal's up to right now with Ledger, and we'll also, of course, go back and do the Mana round and then do some really exciting future projections. Pascal, if you could just start off with by talking to the audience about, the user case and really what Ledger is today and what your role within that is, please.
Sure. So I'll start with my role because that's the easy part. I'm chairman and CEO of the company. And what Ledger is today, it's an interesting question because it's a very hard question. Actually, most companies sort of fail at describing what they are because there is the what they are, but there is the why they are. And I think that the why we exist is to make crypto assets, or what we call critical digital assets, and I explain what it is, but critical digital assets secure and easy to use for individuals and enterprise. And so that's why we exist. Critical digital asset is these assets that are unique, that you can own, and that are precious to you. It is today your money with Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. This is how all of this started. But in the future, it will be much more than that. You think about it as the tokenization of everything. This is what people call Web3. But think about your identity, your medical records. There are many things, or even like your very secret conversations. There are many things that are digital today and that we would like to have, own, keep private, but that Web2 you actually can't do that. It's all with third parties. It's all owned by the cloud or by a company. Your money is with the bank, and this Bitcoin/Web3 revolution is really about ownership back to the people, or even ownership at the enterprise level. And so we're really here to help people and all the way to enterprise to secure their life and to engage with their Web3 life. So that's why we exist. And how we do it is through hardware. So we're known for the Nano and the what's called a hardware wallet, Nano S, Nano X, Nano S Plus. And on the enterprise side, we bring the same type of technology to companies called Ledger Enterprise, and the product is called Ledger Vault. We sold 5 million pieces of our hardware wallet, and we have 100 plus customers now on Ledger Enterprise.
Amazing. Would be classified as cold storage, and category lead in that for sure. For anybody who doesn't know what a ledger is, the Nano, as you say, Pascal, is a very cool. I don't know what size it is, like an original kind of like MP3 machine that you would have carried around, where in essence you're taking, and I'm going to say this in a way that probably frustrate you, but where you're taking it from, let's say, potentially an online exchange, the token that you have accrued, and then you're being able to take that into your own personal hardware cold storage, which is deemed to be more secure. Could you explain why that's deemed to be more secure?
So this is how it looks like. This is the Nano X. So it's not cold storage, or cold storage is the thing of the past. What people usually call cold storage at the beginning is because they thought that if you would put your Bitcoin, actually they thought rightly that if you would put your Bitcoin on a phone or a computer, as soon as you would plug your computer or your phone to online, as soon as you're connected to the internet, this would put your private keys at risk, which is actually true in a sense that computers and phones were not designed for security in the sense of security, cryptocurrency private keys. it is very easy to crack a phone. It's very easy to crack a computer. Operating systems on phone and computers, you have to patch them every week almost, because they find vulnerabilities. And so we all know that, like, this is what we've done since we use computers and Windows. Like, you need to patch your operating system very frequently, and because for a good reason, they were not designed to do security. And so therefore, at the time, because Bitcoin was created in 2008, right? And Ledger in 2015, and Trezor maybe a couple of years before. But between 2008 and 2012, 13, 14, 15, there was no hardware security. And so people did have to keep their coins on computers or phones, but they knew it wasn't safe. And so hence the cold storage strategy, which is I put it on a piece of hardware that is insecure, but then I unplug it from the internet, so at least attackers cannot come.
Right.
When Ledger came to market in 2015, we sort of changed that, because actually this device that I've just shown you, this can stay online for as long as you want, because it would be ridiculous, right? Like, I mean, this cold storage strategy, which is if it's offline, it's safe. And then it depends where offline, like in a dark room somewhere with a Faraday cage. And as soon as I plug it online, it becomes unsafe, because attackers can now attack. And so this is unacceptable as a security scheme. It's like, I'm safe, unsafe, and I never know when, and I never know if I'm going to be attacked. So with this, you can be offline, online, it doesn't really matter. Like, you're always safe exactly in the same way. And the way it works, but the enterprise solution is a variation of this, but it's the same. It works with secure hardware. And so what you have inside this is basically is what you have on your credit card. So credit cards, what you have on your credit cards, the chip here is actually a French invention, believe it or not. And it took forever for the United States to go from this to that. And that's a higher form of security. And so what does it do? It actually protects your bank secrets. And so it's a chip and pin, it protects your bank secrets. What this does now, it's exactly the same, except that it protects your secrets, but it's the same technology. And of course, we adapted this technology to crypto, in the sense that there is our own proprietary operating system that runs onto this. I mean, get this, on this chip, there is an operating system. Sorry, up here. There is an operating system. It's interesting to think about that. Like your phone has an operating system. Of course, it's iOS on your Apple, it's Android on your Android phone, but this also has a little operating system. And so in here, what you have is a chip with Ledger proprietary operating system, and that's what makes this device very secure. But now, whether it's offline or online doesn't really matter. So we're temperature agnostic. We can be cold, we can be hot, like, whatever you want to do with your device, you're good. We always provide you with the same level of security. There is no reason why, as a user, you should compromise on your security. And now, because it can be online, then it can be always connected. Then it's not just a dumb cold storage device where this is where the coins go to die, or this is where the coins go to hodl. What you do now is you connect your Ledger device to your Ledger Live, which is a web application, either on your computer or an application on your phone. And this is how you do your transactions with your coins. And right now with Ledger, you can do everything from buy, sell, swap, stake, your NFTs. I mean, you name it. We've actually developed Ledger as a platform, as a security platform, open, very much like your iPhone or your Android phone, with an app store where you have everyone in the Web3 communities, like every service, they can develop an app that goes on your Ledger. And so what this is a key to your Web3. It's a turnkey to enter Web3 securely, navigate Web3 securely, and connect to different Web3 value proposition.
Thank you, Pascal. The more that you adopt that later part of the strategy, does potentially more of a risk accrue?
No, not at all. And actually, it's the game. Like, the game is, our mission is to be secure and make it easy to use. So we never compromise on security. Ledger don't compromise on security. We don't do good enough security. We do perfect security to our current knowledge. But this is why at Ledger sometimes I say to my team, it's never about being first. It's always about being right, because the only thing that Ledger cannot do is to sort of compromise on security. So we can't. We've had like various discussions with the team, but the answer is always the same. There's no compromise on security. Oh, but if we were to do this, we'll be 99.5% secure, but and the 0.5 is not really dangerous, or it's very difficult, etc. No. It has to be 100% to our current knowledge.
Well, that's superb to hear. I'm just being a devil's advocate with the technology. Then, by the way, I love that that card kind of visualization. Does anything need to improve on it? Actually, that technology is, even with the scaling plans that you'll have, sufficient, and it's more about driving awareness so more people use this. What's the big challenges and what's the big agenda for you right now?
I think the big challenge that the industry is facing is UI and UX. And so in terms of security, Ledger is the best that there is right now in the market. You can always increase security and always increase security dominance, but the security is very strong right now. Like, it's impossible to open a ledger and to extract the private keys. It's impossible today, and we're going to work hard that it stays impossible tomorrow, because security is a never-ending game. Attackers will keep on attacking, and so we need to keep on defending. And so we invest a lot of money in always upgrading security every time we can to make it harder, stronger, to reinforce security every time we get a chance. That's the game. And so, to our current knowledge, and today, Ledger is the best value proposition, and we're going to work hard so it stays the same in the future, but we'll need to work hard. Like, security is not something that is standing still. Now, that being said, security is really good today, and where we can improve, but the rest of the market can improve, is user interfaces and user experience in general. So this is the big focus of us going forward. And typically, when we think about the next hardware that we're going to design, but also not just the hardware, but the connection between the hardware, the operating system, and the software that sits on top, that technology stack, it needs to be very elegant. It needs to be very easy to use. The user experience needs to feel flawless. And so that's what we're working on, really. Most of what Ledger is doing is really to work on user experience, user interfaces, usability, bringing more services to the user, but also making them super easy to use.
When I first used the Ledger, several years ago, you kind of write your 20 questions down to remember your security. And I lost those questions, Pascal, like a fool. So with my next Ledger, I inscribed those somewhere that I know they will never be lost.
Got a tattoo somewhere?
I'm not going to say, right? but they're not getting lost. Good, kind of fun stories around that topic that you all have.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll tell you a fun story, and then I tell you why it's important. So I'm doing tests, so I'm setting up different ledgers, etc. And one day I set up one ledger, and I put some money onto it that is sort of relevant. It's not nothing. It's something that you don't want to lose. And then I do something very clever with the 24 words, and I put them somewhere. Except that it was so clever that I completely forgot what I did. And so one day, I still have the device, and I'm thinking, okay, well, now I need the 24 words because I need to set up another device to realize that I've lost the 24 words. So thank God I still had the device and the pin, so I could transfer the money. But to your point about the difficulty about those 24 words. And by the way, this is what I'm saying, that the industry as a whole has UX, UI to solve, and this is one of the biggest pain points of the industry. This is actually a break for mass adoption of crypto, and not just Ledger, mass adoption of crypto. If you want to have your coins, you need to set up a wallet, whether it's a software or hardware wallet. If you do it in a software way only, then you're doing a mistake, and you should absolutely pair whatever software you have with a hardware wallet. This is the highest form of security. If it's on software, your money is as good as gone. But be that as it may, when you set up your software, you still have to do your 12 or 24 words, and you still have to keep them somewhere, etc. The industry still hasn't figured out a good way of safekeeping those 24 words for you, hassle-free, etc., where it's not just on you, etc. And if you think about the future of the industry, when it will be, trillions and trillions of value, can we really rely on us remembering exactly where the 24 words are. And also, we're both young and fresh, like, but in 40 years, will you remember where you put your 24 words? Maybe not. And okay, so the industry has to do better when it comes to this problem. And this is a problem that I've been discussing since I joined the industry, and Ledger will come next year with a solution for this.
Okay, because that's why I asked around this, because you're talking about user experience, and from my own personal one, there's a few, I agree, industry wide, and then I was just thinking, like, I mean, everything about Ledger is just looks like it's market leading, brilliant. What could Pascal possibly be thinking about other than upside initiatives? And that one was like, that's a bit archaic there. And now that's interesting, because maybe that's the integrity of why it's good, because it's complex. The second we make it simplified, it's easier for the hackers, right? And I'm not sophisticated enough to think that through. I know you will be. So I'd love to know a little hint, if you can, at what a solution might look around that.
Well, I think the answer is in the way that you phrase your question. I think it's true. The highest form of security will always be for you to keep your 24 words and never share them with anyone. That's the purest form of doing it, etc. There's no really other way of doing it, to be honest. We are working on a project that is the next best form of doing it, but there will be some compromise that you have to do. I cannot say much more about this, but you have to compromise on some aspects of your crypto life in order to be a little safer. I think it won't be fine at all for the maximalists and the people that are like the cypherpunks and the hardcore of the community, and they will keep the 24 words, and which is what they've done since 2008, and that's fine. And actually, it's a brilliant piece of technology. It just requires you to be engaged. And actually, there is nothing wrong about being engaged. Like if you're responsible for your own security, of course you have to engage. Of course you need to know what you're doing. Of course you need to know where is your shit. The problem with us interacting with Web2 is you click yes, 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 and you download any app because you don't care. It's someone else's problem. When you go into Web3, it becomes your problem. So actually, from a UX UI standpoint, the 24 words, it's a problem, but then it's not, because it is really you being empowered to take care of your digital self, of your digital goods. And so therefore, it requires you to be engaged and to do something about it and to remember what you've done, because these things are very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely see that we're at this moment where actually quite a lot of the people, they like cryptography, they liked the technical geeky element of the nature of where we've got to today, and now we're seeing really to engage more of the mass market to come in over the next few years. Some type of small compromise would be accepted, particularly I think if it's like exchanging high volumes of low denominums, and that's where the simplicity will be very appealing and be adopted. So good timing with that. In terms of giving us some idea about the company today, so this is very much so far, and thanks for talking about it, the really exciting market, the user case. How many people are you? Where are you distributed? If you gave us some type of perspective on Ledger, the company, please.
Yeah, Ledger, the company, is close to 900 people today. We promote decentralization and we build tools for decentralization, but we are a very centralized company. We don't really subscribe to the point where we can have employees everywhere in the world and everybody connects online and we never meet. For two reasons, actually. We are a hardware company, so hardware, you need to touch it. You need to have people in a room. So that's one thing. And the second thing, we're a security company. So I need to have my employees on site. I need to know who they are, et cetera, et cetera. But also, from past experiences, like, when you have tech, product, marketing, everyone in the same location, it's much easier to design a user experience, a user interface, and to understand how you go to market. The company that we look up to, of course, is Apple. It's the best hardware company in the world. And if you think about how Apple has designed the headquarters, it's exactly that. It's like, big headquarters. I mean, it seems to be reverse to where the market is going, where people are saying, oh, now it's everybody remote, nobody needs to go back to the office, etc. Apple is actually doing quite the opposite, and so we're exactly like Apple in that sense, where from a product perspective, we believe that we need to have our people on site. Now, we don't have 900 people in Paris. We have a bunch of people in England, in Ukraine, in different cities in France, etc. Because there is a war for talent, and you need to be able to recruit the talent where it is. And so, life being life, like you don't have everyone in Paris, but you have great talent in London where we recruit. You have amazing talent in New York, amazing talent in Singapore. And finally, in New York and Singapore, what we do is this is where we have our enterprises team. So from New York, we cover North America, and from Singapore, we cover the APAC region. And right now, we're thinking about building a team in Middle East, North Africa, from Abu Dhabi and Dubai.
Thank you for that context. I've been fortunate to meet some of the great team members that you have with you at Ledger. Ian Rogers came onto a Mana Lab symposium we put together, which we did with Imperial College, and we were just trying to drive awareness and education into really bright, ambitious students who might want to come into the space. And it was fantastic. I mean, he was it's so interesting to me as a hire for you guys. And I know Mo, who's really on the scene, incredible, and met him at a bunch of kind of like NFT events. And the thing about Ledger that really shocked me about the culture, I think, and I'd love you to talk to it, and the thinking there, is if you thought about it as a hardware business, you could think this could be quite a straight line organization, and the focus being on, prudence, and therefore a certain type of individual in the makeup of that culture. Whereas certainly those individuals, and then if I look at your partnerships, how creative they are, if I look at some of the branding and how disruptive it is, it's a very, I love it. I've got a Ledger t-shirt on. I was at Blockchain Week in Paris a while back. I came to one of your events. It had a really, creative energy there. And I just really love all of the stuff that you've done with the business, but also what I can feel from the energy and the excitement about what you guys are doing. Could you talk to that, please? And why you've taken it in that direction?
So first of all, Ian Rogers is a good friend. He's an incredible human being, and Ledger is very lucky to have him. And I met Ian when he joined LVMH as Chief Digital Officer 6 years ago now, I think, in Paris, and we met and we became friends on the first meeting. It was very like, two kids meeting and say, "Hey, do you want to be my friend?" I said yes. He asked me the same. I said yes. And we became friends. And since then, we've been talking about, everything, anything, etc. And more after a while, we started to talk about crypto and what it meant, etc., etc. And Ian has always been, part of cultural revolutions. It was music first, and then it was fashion and digital, etc., etc. And we took the discussion there because to me, Web3 is a cultural revolution. It's a revolution, by the people, for the people, etc. And when I say Web3, I say Bitcoin first, and then everything else. Actually, Bitcoins, even in the early days, was extremely cultural. There were artists, painters, etc. Everyone, like, there is a lot of culture around crypto in general, like geeky culture, but culture in general. And then when we're discussing with Ian, the French, I'm French, obviously, but the French, we are great in building technology. Again, this is the French invention, the Concorde, the list is very long, but we're very bad at taking those inventions mainstream because we don't know how to market them. We don't know how to build the why and build a story around them. Like, why is it cool? Like, why would you want it, etc., etc. And in talking with Ian, like, it was obvious that Ian had many ideas on how to bring Ledger into modern culture. And this is how you build a company. Actually, it's funny because you asked that question yesterday. We had a whole hands at Ledger, and someone said, "Or are we talking too much and not doing enough?" And this was this question about, like, are we doing too much marketing but not delivering enough on the product, etc. Like, he was asking about the balance of those things. And it's interesting because it was really a French question to ask. And so the reality is you want an equilibrium between the two. You want to be able to deliver great products because, without great products, you have nothing. But then you want to be able to talk about it and explain why it makes a difference, etc. And the combination of the two is extremely powerful. people often think that delivering just delivering great products is enough, but it's actually never enough. Like, it's not true that it's enough. And again, if you look at Apple, what Apple did was not just to deliver great products. The products were, of course, great, but the narrative, the marketing, like, you know, how the iPod got into culture because of 50 Cent having an iPod on his video clip, etc., etc. Then you enter like sort of tactically on how you do it. Like, you know, do you do it by paying super high premiums and sponsor, I don't know, like a football team or stadiums? Like, you know, do you do it by hiring like a movie superstar, or do you do it with culture and, you know, bringing Ledger into culture and helping culture with Ledger? And so, of course, this is the latter approach that we've taken, because we think not only is the most relevant to us, but also is the most important to the communities that we're trying to protect. And I think it always comes down to one thing, you know, if you're true to yourself and to your mission, then things work out the right way, which is, and it feels very organic, which is why I think you're making the comment that you're making, like, you know, it feels right. Like, it doesn't feel forced. Like, no one is actually, we're not forcing anyone to do this. Like, we're just doing it with the communities that need the security. And so therefore, you know, welcome the help of Ledger, and, you know, and then in the end, find a school because we find them cool, etc. So it's just just a bunch of cool kids, you know, liking each other and building things together. So this is how we thought about the problem. And so right now it feels very organic, but I can tell you it was a long discussion with Ian, and we crafted the strategy, etc. But he's the master in delivering it. And you mentioned Mo, but there's also Ariel with our TV marketing. We have a bunch of great people that joined the company. Funny enough, like some of them are French, but, you know, Ian isn't, Ariel isn't, Mo is in part, etc. But we try to bring international talents that is really good at building these stories and really good at bringing companies into culture. So my job was to find the talent and the right talent to do something. And so I knew that I needed someone as extraordinary as Ian to do this.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I mean, those are often, you know, the fun things, but the hard things to get right. Just like you say with Apple, which is obviously a great example. We can visualize a day of Steve Jobs kind of like walking around, looking at the hardware with Johnny Ives. They spend 25 minutes on making perfect coffee first, you know, being critical with everything. You know, there's these two guys in this huge organization making massive decisions, you know, and then the next hour he's moving around and he's kind of like firing the marketing agency and getting another one. I always try and, when we're working with companies, think what companies are they trying to emulate? And so you guys have got one of yours there, and that makes a whole load of sense. Could you give us, just to finish this first section, the audience, some type of visualization of, you know, God, 900 people now, there's so much going on, millions of products out there. What a day for you is like at the moment?
Well, you know, I think whether it's 10, 100, 900, you know, 3,000, etc. for, you know, if as a CEO, and if you want to get somewhere, and if you're pushing the boundaries, whatever CEO you are and whatever the company is, it's hard. Like, you know, business is hard. It's always difficult. It's always easy at the end when you succeeded or when you got somewhere, you know, then you make it look easy, but the journey is always difficult. And by the way, it should be difficult. I think, you know, there is a lot of competition. There is a lot of smart people out there, and, you know, and when you play in crypto today, you know, Ledger is playing in the Champions League of crypto. So, you know, you compete against very, very, very smart people. Actually, this is the reason why I got into crypto. I thought I would meet there and compete with the most interesting, smartest people, etc., etc. And so the nature of it is difficult. Managing 900 people versus managing 100 is just a question of process, and it's just a question of how good are you as a CEO at hiring your managers that will then subsequently manage other people. I'm really good at hiring. I hire great people. And so therefore, I make my life easy by hiring the best and to empower them to actually be the best. The common mistake, and usually where as a CEO you don't scale, is to try to keep control on everything. And you hire great people, but you overlook what they do. You try to do it instead of them, or you try to validate every decision that they're taking, etc. Me, the only way to scale for me, and also the only way to, for my sanity, I guess, is to rely on great people that then will do the job. And I rather trust them. And so we have five values in the company, which is pragmatism, audacity, trust, transparency, and engagement. So I would trust you, I would trust my team until they prove me wrong. And so if I know that I can't trust you anymore, then it becomes a different question. And then, we are also very aggressive at letting people go. I'm very easy at trusting people, very aggressive at letting people go if it doesn't work. And that's okay. And sometimes it doesn't work because it's not the right timing, it's not the right thing, etc. Like people usually are good. Like, I like people. So I usually don't fire people because I don't like them. It's just like, they're not good for the job. But once you have a good team and, once you have that team that can do the work, then it's super easy to scale. I mean, super easy. And so 900 people for me feels like 300 people because I have this layer of manager like Ian Rogers, Sébastien Badeau, that is coming from Alibaba. But I mean, you name them, like all of them. My CTO, Charles Guimet, our Chief Innovation Officer, Nicolas Bacca, founder of the company. I don't need to tell Nicolas what to do with innovation. He needs to tell me what I need to know. So this is how I work, and so it makes it easy.
Yeah. Well, hear so often from the greatest investors, their job is, putting the right manager in almost more than anything else. And, the job of a board member or a chairman or a CEO is, doing that with the people who they can kind of have in that shared mindset and trust, and everybody's bringing different things to the table. I think we do another show at some point about some of the techniques you've got for hiring, because it sounds like you're a complete master at it. But now we're going to move to the middle part of the show. We're going to go into...
Do you want me to give you one technique?
Yes, please. Yes.
The one technique is never think that someone is too big for your company. There is no such thing as this. And actually, as you start thinking this, then your companies are shrunk. The question is, how do you make your company big enough so you can attract the best? And so it's the reverse. If you think that someone is too big for your company, it's because your company is not big enough. It's not that they're really too big for your company, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that particular tip, then, let's say that you come across somebody who is, just so alluring for you to have in your company, but the stage is perceivably a little bit too early. Would your tactic be to, court them over a period of time? Or would your tactic be, if I can't get that person convinced and be as excited as I am right now, I'm shrinking my company?
No, I think it's all a question of timing. So Ian joined, I don't know, a year and a half ago now, I think. But I've tried to get him to join for, the previous 3 years. And so it's always a question of sort of timing. 3 years ago, it was not right for Ian to join, and he didn't. And so that's okay. And actually, retrospectively, I'm glad he didn't, because the company, when he joined, was actually ready for him, and before, probably not. And so it's all a question of timing. And so, sometimes, of course, if you got a tiny company and then you're trying to recruit like the CEO of Apple, you're trying to recruit Tim Cook, okay, well, that's not going to work. Like, sometimes there are people that are too big for you at the moment. But who knows, like, the day that Ledger becomes 10x what it is today and is on a superb trajectory, why not? I'll give it a shot. Like, Tim Cook, if he wants the job, like,
we should compare notes, because it's like on the Searching for Mana show as well. We'll have kind of whale shots, and I put you into that category as well. Like, we're super excited to have got to the point where we have you on the show. Every now and again, on a Friday evening, I'm just kind of pinging Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, just like, hey, you guys should come on the show. And we keep on doing it. We'll keep on doing it.
As you should. I think it's exactly the right attitude. You should check out a guy called Lewis Pugh. He's a cold water swimmer. He's a South African guy. And he told me the story one day of everything is possible. And he's telling you about like this trip that he did in the North Pole, where he swam for 1 mile in the water that is -2 degrees Celsius. So don't ask me why, but it's terrible. In his Speedo, by the way, because when he was telling the story, I thought he had the suit, but no, in a Speedo.
Whoa.
And I tell you the story on how he did it, etc., to tell you that like everything, I mean, it's a fascinating story of like why everything is possible. So I think, people should start by thinking that everything is possible, and then you go from there.
Yeah, exactly. I completely love it. Okay, so to change the gears, gonna ask you to really help the audience visualize as early back as you could with your origin story. What type of influences you might have had? Anything that really sets the scene as far back as possible, Pascal.
I mean, as far back as possible, I guess my parents, my education in France, I think was very important. The day that I really learned how to speak English was very important. I think.
But if we do go back, I'm going to just give you an example, because otherwise it's like, how far back? I mean, this would be a 25-hour podcast, right? I'll get founders on the show, and they can come from many different types of walks of life. Really recently, somebody who was the quickest kind of scaling business to a unicorn. He'd sold a business for hundreds of millions of pounds. When you went back, he had a carpenter who was his father, and his father had taught him how to build birdhouses. And then from that, he kind of, in his neighborhood, gathered a group who then he kind of like set about making a little bit of an operation. And that was the first time he was like, I really started thinking how I could be an entrepreneur. And if you see what he ended up doing, it just made a load of sense. On the other side, Diogo, who I know with Anchorage, all of his family are PhD professors. He was, told you're going to get a PhD. His father kind of wrote books about security and hacking. Before Diego knew it, he was great at hacking and focused on security. He goes to university, and then literally, Facebooks and Googles are trying to hire him before he's even finished. It's a very different story, but it's super interesting. I wonder if you could tell us that kind of journey, please.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Look, I hate to disappoint, but for me, my journey is very iterative. It's one thing after the next, etc. It's one stone after the other. I don't have like a eureka moment where I'm thinking, okay, I don't know. Like I always had like this view of the future that everything would be okay, and then I sort of went along with the flow. I guess the only thing that was my eureka moment the thing that got me where I am is I know what I don't know, and I'm okay with that. I don't think I know everything, but I know what I don't know. There are a lot of people that I'm meeting with, they don't know what they don't know, or they think they know too much, or they think they're not curious enough, etc. Curiosity, knowing what I don't know, and curiosity, sort of what.
Let me try and ask some specific questions to work out perhaps where some of that came from. So, if you go really back, a brief description about your, who you grew up with, your family.
I grew up in Paris. My family is a, Parisian family. My mother is a philosophy teacher. My father is an architect.
Okay.
Philosophy comes from my mother, and the sense of business comes from my father's side, I guess.
And, were you influenced or encouraged into any particular education relatively early on?
No, not really. Actually, I didn't graduate from university. I'm a university dropout, as they call it.
Very cool. Counterculture. But before that, in school, by say 11-ish, are you engaging with any particular subjects, or are you not enjoying the school experience?
Not really enjoying the school experience at all. In my childhood, if you wanted to know what made me tick, it was more like mangas with Dragon Ball, for example. It was more Michael Jordan. It was more the Lord of the Rings. And what these three things have in common is, I was always fascinated. Actually, I've got many rings, and this one is Alexander the Great. And so I was always fascinated with those people. If you read Dragon Ball, Son Goku is the guy who, always trained. There's always a bigger guy to fight, etc. There is a never-ending story. It's a never-ending journey. If you understand what it means, it's sort of what we're going through in business. If you understand that the business is a never-ending story, there is always a new boss that you're gonna have to fight. That's very important. Michael Jordan is like the real-life Sengoku. He's like, the guy who always wins in the end, because he's gonna put hard work, dedication, etc., etc. Alexander the Great is the ultimate story. It's the story, if you write it as a book, nobody would believe it. They'd be like, oh, whatever. This this is way too much, etc. But probably what these three also have in common is they change, the game also in terms of culture. Like they all had a great cultural impact. If you think that just a few years, it's not just the Alexander the Great, it's not just the conquest that he's done, but also the impact on administration and culture that he has on the countries or the region that he conquered at the time, with statues that are still, out there today, which is incredible. Look at the cultural impact of Michael Jordan. It's not just basketball. It's not just winning games and titles. It's a very profound cultural impact, and of course, Dragon Ball has a very deep cultural impact as well. I mean, of course, it's a cartoon for kids, etc., etc. Like you shouldn't read much more than there is into it, but still, the cultural impact, etc., is the same. So for me, like these years were all about probably these three things, where it's about like how do you push the limit, working hard, pushing the limits. It's a never-ending journey. You can always be better, and in the end, what matters is that you win. It's actually the one thing my father always told me. Doesn't really matter. It's only the results that matter. The rest doesn't matter. Winning is key.
So you're hearing that message. Are you seeking out those type of books and narratives and then resonating with them? Or do you feel like, they were kind of the books on the shelves and you read it and you were inspired by them?
No, I don't. Often when it's a thing, like often when I say thing is like people are like, oh my God, you must have read like so-and-so book. I didn't actually, and actually it comes from my background of, no university graduation. Like what I do is more because of pragmatism and curiosity. If you go to university, or sometimes you know too much, and so it clouds your vision because you think you know something. But if you think about science, for example, and physics and science, physics and science, I was listening to one of the Prix Nobel the other day, and he was saying that he was the best because he knew how to deconstruct every machine that they use for physics, and and build them up again, and so the ability of dumbing things down completely. Like me, when I approach a problem, I'm trying to dumb it down because first I have no preconcept of what it is. B, sometimes I'm not smart enough to really understand when it's very explained very fancy. So I always try to dumb down everything that I encounter. And when you do so, you sometimes realize that most people actually don't really understand the problem. They repeat things that they've been told, but they don't really understand what's under. And so when you try to deconstruct everything and dumb it down and asking the dumb questions, you end up knowing much more than the average person because you actually went all the way down and understood the problem. And so for me, my crypto journey, for example, like I don't come from finance, I don't come from security, and I am not an engineer. So there you go. But it's okay. You can really understand what's going on if you take the time, ask the question, and work hard. Like, working hard is the key to everything.
Yes. So I love that. You got to find your best D-level students to be the CEOs of disruptive businesses is a kind of mantra in venture capital. Not because those individuals couldn't have got A stars, but it's because of that lack of fear of being right and being on the conveyor belt of like what the next obvious thing is. And then if you look at, we mentioned Apple, your Steve Jobs, he very famously goes and takes like a calligraphy education. And that creativity becomes like hugely useful for then what we start seeing on the personal computer. So running through that sounds like, hard work, results matter, I want to win, and curiosity. And so if we then come through the kind of educational part and you start in your career, if you just took us to speed to then how we get to you at that point, becoming who you are at Ledger.
The career part starts with, when you have no degree, you sort of have to do what you have to do. Like, most companies won't hire you. And so me in 2000, I have the choice of joining the army, which I thought was a fine choice. Like, I would have done that, but I got offered a job in the web at the time. Like, it was a startup company being built, and, they needed like just people to join. And most talents at the time that were coming out of university didn't believe in the web. So they rather at the time work for blue chip companies rather than work for a city startup company. But for me, I had nothing better to do. And also I thought it was exciting. And so I guess this was the first step. And once I got there, I was like, okay, well, this is my chance because this is amazing, number one. Number two, no one knows anything. So being curious and learning fast, being pragmatic is actually the way to become someone or something, or to have a great job and to have great opportunities. And then I was smart and lucky, I guess. Like I did everything that I do is on purpose, but I met with great people. And then, meeting with Pierre Chapaz, who was at the time the CEO of Kelku, but not just Pierre Chapaz, like Pierre Chapaz, Dominique Vidal, Pierre Godet, Sadek Shekroun, like a bunch of guys. And I forget some because there were so many great people working at Kelku. And then Kelku got acquired by Yahoo, so that was luck. And then you go to Yahoo, and then you meet amazing people there like Dan Rosenberg, Greg Coleman, people that are really inspiring. And I think if you need to stay very curious and very humble, like you meet all these people and you learn everything that you can from them. Like I was a sort of a sponge. Like every time they would say something, I listened. I wouldn't challenge them. I was just there to listen, learn, etc., and then build my own experience, etc., to eventually put it to the benefit of Criteo in 2008, which was a small startup company then, and joined, Jean-Baptiste Rudel, Romain Nicoli, Franck Lewey were the three founders, and joined them as the sales guys basically, but helped them eventually pivot the company towards the advertising business model that made the success of the company. And then you ride that for 6 years. You introduce Criteo at the NASDAQ for $2 billion plus. It was a huge success and huge learning curve. But again, like you learn. And at the time, typically when I joined Criteo, I was not ready to build my own company. And I thought, okay, I'm going to learn a lot with Jean-Baptiste and with this opportunity. And I did, and it was only after that I did what I call an internship with Index Ventures. You mentioned my venture days, but really what they are is, first, it's an internship, what I think today as an internship with Index Ventures. And then I did a second one with Mosaic Ventures, where basically they teach me, how do you invest, etc., which I didn't really know before. And so, but again, you learn, and it's not easy, because then you're Criteo. I was chief operating officer, and then you go back down to be learning about something new, and people teach you. So you're a student again. So you thought you got somewhere, and actually you got nowhere, because you're a student again. And one day I realized that I want to do Bitcoin. So, and then I go back again to study, and there was no one in 2014 in the space, and most people that I met. That were in the game then, some people, not most people, but some people were talking to me as if I was nothing, which I was nothing. But coming from Criteo and the success that I had, it felt like strange and hard. It was painful at the beginning, but then you learn how to enjoy that pain, because it's the pain that means that you're working hard, you're actually doing what you're supposed to do. It's very counterintuitive. It's a little bit like when you do sport. I don't know what sport you play, but I play rugby. When it hurts, it means it's good. Like, it means that you're having a good game. If it doesn't hurt, then you're having a shit game. Like, you're letting everyone pass you. Like, you don't tackle hard enough. And usually if you do a good game of rugby and it hurts, means that in the end you feel great about yourself, and this is where the beer tastes the best. If you have a shit game, then you don't even want that beer. And so when you go back at the bottom to learn everything from scratch, and you become no one again, I think it's a feeling that is a bit sadomasochist in a way. Like, it hurts, but you have to like it, because it's the only way to build something meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. I played a couple of sports for the country when I was growing up. One was kind of middle distance running, and then also hockey, which is a really niche sport. And my number was 23. And it stuck with me as my lucky number, and now everybody thinks it's because of Jordan and Beckham, but it was just because I was in the second team for England at that point. So I got 23. Yes, yeah, oh yeah, I love it. So that almost delayed gratitude of the inches and the steps that you need to take to get an achievement, like you gave in the rugby example. And like, from an outside lens, people thinking you're kind of a little bit masochistic to enjoy that. You just learn to love it, don't you? And I've completely experienced that with my business as well. And I often think maybe the thing I'm doing, one of the tasks I'm almost doing the most is trying to help people with mindsets, you know, where we've got a combination of we're sprinting on tasks, but we're really trying to think like medium and long term about, you know, how we can create this vision and how we can take agency to make it a reality. And that doesn't come naturally, I find, to a lot of people. You find them from certain type of sporting backgrounds, it actually helps, but there's a whole different way to kind of coach people to get there. So amen to that. I completely resonate with it. Pascal, I'm going to quick fire through the mana round now, where we're going to try and find what your mana is and what your superpower is. So there's a few questions that we're going to ask. You can be as, you know, yes, no, and short. Will you please talk to the particular question as much as you'd like to? Okay. Mm-hmm. If you could have the front cover, and I'm sure you probably have or are going to, of Forbes or whatever your favorite publication, the dearest publication to you is, what would you put on it?
Buy Bitcoin.
Nothing about then using a ledger? No?
Well, you know, I think the no, okay, let me take that back. I wouldn't say buy Bitcoin. I would say don't trust, verify. That's what I would say.
Ooh, don't trust, verify. Okay, that's good. With a picture of you with your rings.
No, probably not. Actually, without me, I think, you know, don't trust, verify is sufficient to itself. I shouldn't have anyone else next to it, because I think it's opposite to the point that don't trust, verify means, or in veres veritas, or don't trust, verify. Yes.
Love it. What keeps you up at night?
Well, you know, nothing. I sleep really well. And, you know, I try to sleep very well because, you know, days are hard enough as they are. So I try to balance everything, so nothing keeps me up at night. But if there was one thing that would keep me up at night, or, you know, sometimes I dream about it, is, you know, the continuous journey. You know, the fact that it's sort of never over, and always thinking about the next 5 years, next 10 years. I always have a 5-year plan and 10-year plan. This is how I drive all of my decisions, because everything is towards these two objectives. And so what keeps me up at night is the constant thinking about, you know, the 5-year, 10-year plan, because obviously it's not standing still. You don't decide one day 5-year, 10-year, and then it doesn't move. It's a constant evolution based on what you learn every day. And so this is what keeps me up at night, is always thinking about the 5-year, 10-year plan.
God, I love that. That's so positive. I had Ilya, who's the architect founder of Near Protocol, and he was saying when he was growing up, he was developing computer games, and he designed one computer game where it was just infinite levels. It never stopped, that you could keep on, you know, moving on up. And when he was talking about the future of Near, it was very much, I was like, this is basically the computer game you designed, Ilya, right? So that you could live in it. And it's the same for you. It's like an infinite possibility to move forward to. I love it. At least it's not like, oh, it's these concerns I have about this one particular thing. So you're sleeping well, Pascal. In terms of like your day, is there any particular ritual that you have in the morning that you could talk to the audience about?
It depends where I am. Like, the problem is I'm traveling a lot, so the ritual, I don't have rituals per se. When I'm at home, my ritual is very easy. I wake up at, you know, 7:30 or whatever it is, probably more 7. I start texting Ian in a very sad way. With Ian or Charles. I start my day with Ian or Charles usually, because they wake up super early. So Charles, my CTO, we start texting early. While I text them, I do myself a coffee. You know, I live in Geneva, so I got this really bread that I like with some cream cheese or whatever. Like, so this is how I start my day, texting Ian and Charles, and I think my coffee with my cream cheese, something like that.
Is there a particular mantra that you live by that's very dear and precious to you?
It's not so much a mantra, but I think individual freedom is very important to me, and it's very important to Ledger, and this is why we exist. And I think individual freedom is being challenged, has been challenged recently, is being challenged today by many things, by, you know, COVID, technology, etc. I think if you think about Apple, Google, all these guys, like this is the first time that we have companies that are so gigantic, that make so much money, that control so much other people. And I think it's a dangerous moment. Like technology can become very dangerous for humanity. And so, I think what we're trying to do at Ledger, and what I'm trying to do personally, is just to make sure that we build a technology that can free people, not technology that can continue on enslaving people.
Love it. Right behind you on that one. So last question of this round is, I'm searching for mana. I'm always looking for the next guest, and I'm a speculative believer. Who would you recommend would be an incredible guest for a future show?
Well, you said Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk is great and fun. So if you haven't had him, then go with him. Have you had Arthur Ace? XCO BitMEX? I think he's amazing.
Okay.
I would
Fantastic.
Invite
I'll tap you up for him. And then
JC at Kraken. JC, who was the CEO at Kraken, just stepped down.
Yeah.
Now JC or Arthur, I think, are.
Yeah, I'd love to get Jesse on. We had someone else from Kraken. We've had most of the founders and CEOs of the exchanges, but not him. So it'd be really interesting timing as well to get that story. So
yeah,
great recommendation. So finally, on the Searching for Mana show, mana is your magic. In gaming, you have power. Think of that as the CV. With the mana, we're really looking for, can you run quickly? Can you jump high? Do you have amazing sword skills? Pascal, what would you say your mana is?
To know what I don't know.
Perfect. I love it. We'll put that on your mana card that we're putting together for this series guest. Right. Out of 10, it's 10 out of 10 to know what you don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm really good at knowing. I don't know much, so it's easy for me to know what I don't know. But yes, I think I got.
Amazing. Okay. All right. Thank you. So look, we've kind of spent a lot of the very valuable time that we put aside for this show. So in the final part, we'll do just a couple of topics. So I'd love you to talk. First of all, we've come up to speed. We've learned a bit about your background, some future projects that are really exciting for the audience to hear about the Ledger embarking on, please.
Look, I think about Ledger, the most exciting thing that sometimes people don't know is that Ledger is now an open platform. So you go to developers.ledger.com, and then you realize that third-party developers, Web3 companies, coin foundations can start coding directly on Ledger. And whether it's for Ledger just the device, or Ledger and Ledger Live, or even Ledger Enterprise, you can start coding your own applications on top of our security platform. And I think this is really amazing. And actually, whether your Ledger connects to, because it's important to understand that whether your Ledger connects to Ledger Live or not, it doesn't really matter to us. You can connect to your self-hosted Coinbase wallet, for example, with your Ledger. You can connect to Rabi. You can connect to most of the wallets in this industry, actually, software wallets. You can connect with your Ledger. And for us, it's very important. This open nature of Ledger is, it's linked back to the freedom, individual freedom. Like, we ultimately want people to choose what they want to do. And also, Ledger has been built to be disaster resilient, meaning that even if I go under a bus tomorrow or all Ledger employees die in atrocious deaths in a fire in that one building that we have in Paris, and it's all very centralized, it's okay, fear not, because your Ledger will keep on working, and you'll be able to use your Ledger with third-party wallets, again, Rabi or Zerion, or you name it. You'll be able to recover your funds, etc., etc. So your destiny is not linked to Ledger. You only link your destiny to Ledger if you want to, if you think we're doing great. But if not, you can easily switch. Actually, you can easily change hardware wallet for another hardware wallet. You can easily input your 24 words into a different value proposition, and you can use your hardware wallet with a different software. So we try to make it as open and as free as possible. But the one thing that people don't know enough about is developers.ledger.com. This is where you can code your app. directly on Ledger. And I think this is very powerful.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think through a few things here. We have, Anatoly from Solana, who have recently launched, Solana stores and a mobile. And why are they doing that? And it's, somewhere in the zone of, well, we want people to be able to, use it in real time in preference to we're separate and we're one chain. And then if I start thinking through the fact that you're emulating Apple, this sounds like an app store, but actually the finance is connected there and it's a marketplace. And you're not the guys who are just, okay, the lane is Tezos or the lane is Algorand or the lane is Ethereum, connected to pretty much like the main ones. Whew, then that is absolutely massive if that pans out. So that how I've just kind of like got the aha moment there, what you're most excited about building towards.
Oh, it is the aha moment. And by the way, it's not what it's going to be, it's what it already is. And so we can do more of the same. It's like, you already have like, I don't know, like 20 apps that are connected. Tomorrow is going to be, well, in Ledger Live, you have 20 apps connected. Outside of Ledger Live, most of Web3 value propositions are already like a Ledger connection.
Yep.
We are going to launch soon something that is called Ledger Connect, which will be a way to connect your Ledger to any Web3 website directly from your browser, whether it's Safari or Chrome. I mean, everything that Ledger is going to do in the future is to improve ease of use, connectivity, and make sure that everyone can code on top of it. So, the aha moment that you just described is exactly the way to think about it. Like, we're not going to choose for you what's cool and what's not cool. Like, we'll let you decide, which community you want to be in. We are not part of religious wars. We're here to support communities wherever they are, because our mission is, security and ease of use. That's all that we do, and we do that for everyone who wants to connect to Web3. So yes, your Ledger will be your primary tool to connect to Web3. But again, it's a tool that will never control you. It's a tool that only you control. And it's a tool where you don't need Ledger as the company. It's a tool that fully empowers you to live your merry Web3 and web life in general.
Yeah, well, you said at the beginning, Pascal, that, a narrative from somebody when they are at the end of their career or obviously successful looking back is slightly rose-tinted or warped, or it's certainly brief. I kind of started doing the searching for Mana Show because I wanted to, like, in real time, get into this phenomenally exciting time that we're at. Like you say, like from 20 years ago, we've got just these Goliath 5 tech businesses in the ecosystem. But now this new technology has come into the ecosystem. It's all up for grabs. We don't know how this is going to pan out. And so I wanted to talk to people who look like they've got ridiculously good traction. But obviously, it's not all going to come off. But if it does, it could be generational businesses. So, to had you on the show, to listen to the great work that you've done so far and the infinite potential that you and Ledger have is so exciting. It's the reason I did this show. So thank you so much. I just really congratulate you for the current work. I know that that's gone, and you're looking at what you can do to take it to the next phase. If there's anything you want to leave to deliver as a message to the audience, then over to you.
Well, so first of all, thank you again for having me on the show. This was a great conversation. I really, really appreciated it. And I don't think I want to say much more. The main message is freedom. The main message is empower yourself with the right technology, control your Web3 life. Understand that it's different. So curiosity, education, it is something that people underestimate. They believe they're going to switch from Web2 to Web3 with no pain, no effort. Everything is about work, pain, effort, being curious, learning, reading, etc. And for this, we have great content. We have great tools on Ledger, but not just. Also, with Sandbox in the metaverse, we have designed an amazing experience to learn about security in the metaverse that you should check out. It's actually one of the most popular experience in Sandbox right now. Like, it's actually, that Ledger experience is amazing. Like 50,000 people have already gone through it. and got their NFT as a result of going through the course. So I think the one message is, be curious and educate yourself. This is going to last. This is going to be important, and so it will go through. It won't go without serious curiosity and serious education.
Love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Pascal.
Avec plaisir, Lloyd. Merci beaucoup.